stood shivering on the wet pavement, clutching nothing but a garbage bag filled with her old clothes. Inside the mansion she had scrubbed, decorated, and turned into a home, her husband was laughing, toasting champagne with the woman he was replacing her with. Mark thought Lakota was trash. He thought she was a nobody from the countryside who should be grateful he ever looked her way. He threw her out like yesterday's news. But Mark made a fatal calculation. He didn't know who Lakota really was. He had no idea that the poor orphan he just evicted was actually the estranged sole heiress to the Vance global empire. And by the time the fleet of black Rolls-Royces pulled up to the curb, it was already too late for him to beg. The clock on the wall ticked loudly, echoing through the silence of the large modern kitchen. It was 8:00 p.m. The roast chicken, seasoned with rosemary just the way Mark liked it, had been sitting on the counter for an hour, slowly losing its heat. Lakota Sterling wiped her hands on her worn-out apron and checked her reflection in the darkened window. She looked tired. At 26, she felt 40. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and her simple gray dress, the one she had bought at a thrift store 3 years ago, hung loosely on her frame. Tonight was their 4th wedding anniversary. "He's just busy," she whispered to herself, a mantra she had been repeating for the last 6 months. "Mark is building the company. He's doing this for us." Mark Sterling was the CEO of Sterling Tech, a company that had started in a garage but was now one of the rising stars of the Seattle tech scene. When they met, he was broke, stressed, and on the verge of bankruptcy. Lakota had worked 3 jobs, waitressing, cleaning, and tutoring to pay their rent and fund his prototype. She had cooked his meals, ironed his shirts, and comforted him when investors slammed doors in his face. Now they lived in a $3 million estate in the suburbs. But Lakota felt more like a maid than the mistress of the house. The sound of a heavy car engine growling in the driveway made her heart jump. She quickly smoothed her dress, lit the candles on the dining table, and put a smile on her face. The front door opened, but Mark wasn't alone. "Just put the bags in the hall, Beatrice." Mark's voice carried into the kitchen. Lakota's stomach dropped. His mother. Beatrice Sterling was a woman who wore pearls like armor and viewed Lakota as a stain on her son's pristine reputation. Lakota walked out to the foyer. "Mark, I didn't know your mother was coming for dinner. Happy anniversary." Mark was standing there, shaking rain off his expensive Italian trench coat. He didn't look at her. He didn't smile. Beside him, Beatrice was inspecting the dust on the hallway table with a critical finger. "Dinner," Mark scoffed, finally looking at her. His eyes were cold, devoid of the warmth she used to see when they were struggling. "We aren't eating here, Lakota." "But I made the roast," Lakota said, her voice trembling slightly. "And the chocolate tart." "Oh, for heaven's sake," Beatrice snapped, turning around. She was holding a lit cigarette despite Lakota's rule about no smoking in the house. "Stop whining about food, girl. Mark has something important to tell you. We don't have all night." Lakota looked between them. A terrible dread, cold and heavy, settled in her chest. "Mark, what's going on?" Mark sighed, running a hand through his perfectly styled hair. He walked past her into the living room and poured himself a scotch without offering her anything. "Lakota, sit down." She didn't sit. She stood by the velvet armchair, her hands gripping the fabric. "I've been thinking a lot lately." Mark began, taking a sip. "About the company, about my image, about where I'm going." "We're going places, Mark. You're doing so well," Lakota said softly. "I am doing well," he corrected her sharply. "I am. Sterling Tech is about to go public. I'm going to be on the cover of Forbes next month. I'll be dining with senators, investors, global leaders." He paused, looking her up and down with a look of undisguised distaste. "And then there's you." "Me?" "Look at you, Lakota," Beatrice interjected, stepping forward with a cruel smirk. "You look like a washerwoman. You have no class, no education, no pedigree. Do you really think you can stand beside my son at a devastatingly high-end gala? You're an embarrassment." I can learn, Lakota stammered, tears pricking her eyes. I supported you when you had nothing, Mark. Does that count for nothing? Mark set his glass down hard on the coaster. That was the past. This is business. I need a wife who matches my valuation. Someone who brings connections, not just casserole. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a thick envelope. He tossed it onto the coffee table. It landed with a heavy thud. What is that? Lakota whispered. Divorce papers, Mark said calmly, and an eviction notice. The room spun. Lakota felt the air leave her lungs. Divorce, Mark, we promised. For richer or poorer. Stop with the drama, Mark snapped. I've been seeing someone else, Sarah Jenkins. Her father owns the Jenkins Media Group. She can help my career. You're just dead weight, Lakota. Sarah Jenkins. Lakota knew her. She was a tall, stunning brunette who had been consulting for Mark's company for months. Lakota had suspected, but she had been too afraid to ask. You're kicking me out, Lakota asked, her voice barely audible. Tonight on our anniversary. It's as good a day as any. Beatrice laughed, creating a cloud of smoke. Start fresh, out with the old trash. But I have nowhere to go, Lakota said, the reality crashing down on her. My name isn't on the deed. I have no savings because I put everything into your company accounts. And you signed a prenup, Mark reminded her coldly. You get nothing, just what you came in with. I signed that because I trusted you. Lakota screamed, the pain finally turning into anger. I signed it because you said it was just to make the investors happy. Mark checked his Rolex. You have 30 minutes to pack your things. Sarah is coming over at 9 to no, I don't want her to see your clutter. 30 minutes, Lakota gasped. Mark, it's pouring rain outside. Not my problem, Mark said, turning his back to her to pour another drink. Beatrice, make sure she doesn't take any of the jewelry I bought her. That stays. Beatrice stepped forward, her eyes gleaming with malice. With pleasure. The next 20 minutes were a blur of humiliation. Lakota ran upstairs to the master bedroom, the room she had painted, the bed she had made that morning, and pulled out an old suitcase. No, Beatrice said from the doorway. She was leaning against the frame, watching Lakota like a hawk. That suitcase is Louis Vuitton. Mark bought that for the trip to Cabo. You didn't pay for it. I need something to put my clothes in, Lakota cried. Beatrice walked over, grabbed a black heavy-duty trash bag from the bathroom closet and threw it at Lakota. Use this. It suits you. Lakota bit her lip until it bled to keep from screaming. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction. She moved to the closet, grabbing her jeans, her old sweaters, the comfortable sneakers she wore to do the grocery shopping. She reached for a diamond necklace on the dresser, a gift from their second anniversary. Beatrice's hand shot out and clamped around Lakota's wrist. Her grip was surprisingly strong. Thief, put it down. It was a gift, Lakota hissed. It was an investment on Mark's part. An investment that didn't pay off. Drop it. Lakota dropped the necklace. She shoved her meager belongings into the plastic bag. She grabbed her phone and her charger. She looked around the room one last time. There was a framed photo of them on the nightstand taken 4 years ago. They were eating pizza on the floor of their empty apartment, laughing. Mark looked at her with such love in that photo. She grabbed the photo frame and smashed it on the floor. Beatrice jumped back.